one of my favorite ways to start a podcast was to just start it right in the middle of a conversation, because there's something about making people go, "What the hell is going on?" that really tickles my fancy. And I'm like,
Oh,
I really like a weird opening and an awkward ending. I
I
don't know
love
why.
it.
I
That's
don't know why,
me. I'm
but
totally awkward all the time, so
I'm like,
that'll work.
maybe it's because I never knew really how to do it, and I don't necessarily like the regular formal ones. Anyways, what I was going to say about the
Okay.
learning is that, especially with something like R3, it's a deeply complex system in a lot of ways. Like I think in order to fully grasp all of it, you have to take a piece, apply it, see what happens, and then keep going back through it. Like you have to loop through it. You can't just
Oh,
get it all at once. Like no
okay.
one can.
Oh, good. So I'm not in left field then. So that's
No,
normal.
I think you are where everyone else is and or would be with the same content.
Okay.
So and like I've done a lot with it, and I still learn things as I go through it. So and I'm writing a book about it, so I'm still
Yeah, you
like
literally wrote
there
the book.
there's well I did not write R3, but I'm writing R3 for email. So R3 was written
Oh,
by Nick Peterson,
okay.
but he asked me to write an applied version of it specifically for email marketing. So
I
um,
see.
I'm
Thank you
working
for
on that.
clarifying.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, so cool. Yeah,
So
so you're working on that.
now we've
Hmm.
awkwardly started.
Very
We can
good.
go wherever
Yes.
we want with it.
I love that. I'm actually in real life, I'm kind of awkward with intros and saying, so sometimes I just disappear because it's so awkward to leave. I just like gone.
Yes, it's
It's
like
like,
Homer Simpson in the bushes.
yes.
I won't do that to you.
That's one of the things I love about your articles because I was going to talk about a battle of wits
Mhm.
and a mistake of pretension. So those two, and I haven't read all of yours yet. Someday I will. But and the spiders one, I can't
Oh
remember
yeah,
the title of that.
what was that one?
Those are so fun. I love how they're so human and you kind of talk about like it makes my mind go to like internal family systems theory, which is actually a psychological theory, which talks about the inner parts within, kind of like we have an inner child and we have maybe an adult self and we have maybe other parts like the worker, the husband or wife or whatever. And so you're talking to maybe a part of yourself and it's
Hmm.
so interesting and fun. That's how I kind of viewed it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good interpretation. I've never thought about it exactly in those terms, but I think that's how I've thought about it to myself in that. And a little bit of context, which might be useful. So that whole, like I called it the daily email thingy on growing trees. And it was
Yeah.
an extension of something that I had been doing in the first half of the year on my personal email list. And I had then kind of stopped the personal email list and shifted to Substack because that's where I was focusing all my other work on. And then I thought, well, what if I just did that here? Let's see what happens, which is kind of how I do things. I'm like, either the next step is obvious because it's executing on something that's already happening, or I'm trying to figure a problem out. And I'm like, what if it's this thing? And so I try a little thing and see what happens.
Yeah.
So that's kind
Hmm.
of what that was. And it's funny, I'm looking at the last one I sent was a mistake of pretension.
Hmm.
Um, and I had been like falling off a little bit and being like, should I or shouldn't I? And then I was like, no, I'm going to do this. And I wrote that. And then immediately after that, I was like, what the hell am I doing? There's a whole like, um,
The inner part.
I haven't written since I on growing trees since I did that one. And there's kind of a conclusion that I came to that I haven't revealed yet. So
Oh.
it's a
Oh.
little disconnected. Um,
Mysterious. I love
and
it.
I might come back to it. But this particular style is one that I have explored with before, and it has worked well for me for short stuff that I just pull off on any given day. Like I don't plan any of that stuff out.
Yeah, that's kind of how I write. and I'm still learning my writing. I'm a newbie. But you doing that helped give me permission to write like that.
Oh, good.
Because you're an excellent writer
Oh,
and
thank you.
you've done so much. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm doing that. Not exactly, but my own kind of way of writing. So thank you
You're
for
welcome.
doing that. Yeah. Actually, so I was going to maybe read it, but I was wondering, would you read a little bit of it
Oh,
for
sure.
us?
Like which one? This is
How
going to
about
be weird.
either one? I like A Battle of Wits too, because I was that the original? I think I was trying to skim through it
That was
before.
one of the earlier ones. Yeah, I think I might have even that might have even like started off the thing. Yeah, the Battle of Wits ended up being a conversation with myself,
Mhm.
which just a little more background context. In this style of writing, there are a few different mechanisms I use. What I try to do is I try to identify one tiny thing from the previous day that is interesting or could be interesting, and then I kind of pull on it and expand it and try to make an experience out of it.
Mhm.
Um, and because a lot of my days are sitting in front of a computer writing, the moments are often just like a single thought in my head that ended up kind of like sometimes that like thought dominates the day or like is the thing that I remember most from the day or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, so when I don't have like an external experience, like when I'm going through this like writing exercise, when I don't have an external experience that stands out to me as interesting enough, I'm like, what about an internal one?
Ooh.
What was that like? And then I just play with it.
Mm.
So yeah, I can read a Battle of Wits a little bit.
I
This
mean, they're
is gonna
your
be
inner parts.
strange. I know, but it's like when you edit these, do you hate listening to yourself talk?
Well, I'm okay with
Okay.
hearing myself talk. I don't like watching myself on video, but hearing is okay, I think. But that's
Yeah.
me.
I I got used
I
to
can
it,
do
but
it if you're not. Sorry, I
no,
just
no, no,
totally
no.
interrupted.
I'll do it. I'll do it. I just so I published a pod. I mentioned I published a podcast for a long time. I always hated listening to it and editing it, and that actually
Ah,
informed a lot of how that podcast ended up being. Because
uh-huh.
we would record it in a way that I could do as little editing as possible, so I didn't have to listen to myself. Um, and so it actually actually ended up adding some unique flavor to it just because I didn't want to listen to myself talk afterwards. And now I'm like, now I'm
Ah,
going to listen to myself talk the thoughts that I've put on the page that I've never said out loud. So let's see how this goes.
I love it. Sorry.
Oh God. Oh, this is Battle of Wits. Excuse me, everyone. A Battle of Wits. Oh God. What have I done? My eyes transfixed. A single bead of sweat curls down the back of my head. My hand trembles over the mouse button. I just clicked. I just put that out there, didn't I? I look at the published screen, wondering if there's an undo button. Poof! Were you expecting some sort of celebration? A tiny figure suddenly appears on the desk in front of me. He looks at me. A miniature version of me? Except maybe he's a little bit evil? I can't tell why, but he just seems. Hey! He shouts. I'm talking to you! Stop examining me! He squints his tiny eyes and looks at me with judgment. Just what exactly did you think was going to happen? I stammer. Well, I thought it was a good idea, and he cracks a huge grin and, obviously holding back laughter, interjects. You've clearly committed one of the classic blunders. The first, of course, is never get in a Oh, put a sock in it. Poof! And a puff of rapidly dissipating white smoke. A second version of me appears next to the first, also standing there on my desk, also tiny. This time he looks somehow good. He's looking at the evil version of me. What are you? Made of memes and old TV and movie quotes? Evil me scowls at his arrival, then, with a chuckle and an eye roll, this was all your doing, wasn't it? Thought, ooh, we'll have fun and be useful and just see what happens. Just see what good stuff happens next. From, he gestures in mild annoyance at the computer, whatever this is. Oh, please, like you had nothing to do with this, good me, sarcastically. As if you didn't think of the benefit this would have, of the profit this could lead to. I hold up a hesitant finger. Why can't you both be correct? They glare at me. I don't know. Should I keep going?
Wherever. You're doing great. I was like, oh, I totally listened to this on a radio show. Whatever you want to do.
It's fairly lengthy, but we could send people the link now that I was writing it. So that is kind of interesting.
Huh. What was that like? What was it like reading it?
Exactly as I remember thinking about it as I was writing it, actually.
Yeah.
So
It's
yeah,
fun.
that's
I
kind of
really
fun.
like it. And I was going to say, because I like to write little notes to myself to remember to say something because it flies out of my brain. These types of things are great for neurodivergent people like me because it helps us to see a concept in action and to really connect with it, and it's entertaining and interesting and engaging and it's just fun. It's
Hmm.
like noodle candy, like Scott calls it.
Yeah.
So those are really fun, but they have like, you're talking within yourself about maybe the inner struggle we have with writing. Is that I can't remember the exact about what
Yeah,
that.
yeah, for sure. So let's see, where did I? They glared at me, and then good me and evil me continued to argue.
It's like I shouldn't have published
Oh,
that kind of
yeah,
thing.
right. So what evil me is like, okay, before I was so rudely interrupted, was that you committed one of these classic blunders, never show vulnerability. It's not very profitable. So that I
Mm.
think, if I remember thinking about it, I'm wondering if this was commenting on a post that I had made about the same time, or if I was doing a weird Inception thing where I was literally talking about the thing that I just wrote. Oh, no, it was the previous one. So the first daily email was the one before this. And I think
Uh,
I wrote that, and in it I was basically like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to try this thing out and see what happens. But I should say I've certainly seen it said that it is a mistake to show vulnerability in what you're doing. Like, you have to like project confidence, and you can't be like, I don't know what I'm doing. But I
mm.
personally much prefer to be in that space. So this was kind of me dealing with that internal dichotomy of like, oh, I'm not supposed to do this, but I want to do this. And instead of like struggling with it, I just argued with myself about it until that went away by writing through
Mm.
it like this, if that makes sense.
It does. And I think that also spoke to me because when I'm writing, sometimes I forget exactly what I wrote, but then I just like read it again. Or when I read something like this, then I remember what I was thinking. So you bringing that up helps. But you showed the vulnerability to help us kind of newbies realize that even people who know a lot, because I know you know a lot, you've been doing this a while, but you still have moments where you question what you're putting out there. And I'm seeing at the end of the article, that's basically the arena structure where you try things, you engage the field,
Right. Yeah.
um, do it afraid kind of thing. Um, One of my favorite speakers says. So,
Well,
yeah.
it's interesting because when you do new things, you can't do something new or try something out without uncertainty.
Mm,
Because when you don't know what the outcome is, which is the natural, like, you do, you can't know what the outcome is of something that you've never done, and so you
hmm
can't do something new without being in uncertainty. But we have
True.
this natural push against uncertainty. That's the often quoted quote of the Guardian Academy, which is, people prefer the certainty of misery to the misery of uncertainty, from Virginia Satir,
Mm,
which, like, our natural inclination is towards certainty, and we'll stay in a bad situation
hmm
because we know it, versus going into a new situation that we don't know but could be better. And
that's
that's
good.
just like the human mindset. We will naturally gravitate towards certainty, even if it's bad for us, rather than go into the uncertain.
Yeah. It takes a lot of bravery to go into the uncertain.
Or just, or fear, or whatever, like, just finding, I don't know, I've tried to reframe my perspective on the uncertainty to be like, oh, this is a cool place to be. Like, I want to be here. Like, uncertainty is where the magic happens. And just
Ooh.
try to connect the dots in my mind such that, oh, I'm in uncertainty now. Oh, this is actually where I want to be. Even if I have no idea what's going to happen, I'm like, cool, this is actually the place. If I need something certain, and we have, like in the Guardian Academy, we have frameworks for that. One of them is the rear view mirror. So if you're trying to accomplish something, and this is often told in the context of, like, let's say you're a freelancer and you want to get client work, and you're trying a bunch of new things to try to get clients. Well, what you ought to maybe do is look and see what you've done before first. And if you successfully got clients one way before, why not just do that again? But this can apply to anything. So you won't really discover anything new doing that, but you might be able to solve your problem doing that by looking back and seeing what's certain from what you know.
The rear view mirror is to kind of help with if you need to step towards something you already know and you want more of that. But if you want to continue to grow, maybe look into the uncertain.
It depends. It depends on it always depends on what you're trying to go for. But yeah, the rear view mirror analogy is basically, most people are like, they're driving their car and they're looking out in front of them and they're like, I've got to seek new things in order to get what I want and solve my problems. But maybe the problem you're actually trying to solve is solved by something that you've already done.
Oh, I see.
So it's basically that.
Yeah, you're going to overcomplicate the system, possibly, if you continue to do new things you don't need to be doing.
Yeah, so it always just depends on what you're really trying to accomplish with what you're doing. So
cool. I like it. So we're going to go completely out of order. Now I'm going to introduce you.
Okay, great. I love it.
Hi, my name is Dr. Brianna Willie. I'm a therapist and I run a private practice. I'm diversifying my income with building a coaching business, blogging, podcasting, and course creating. I get to create in my work while building a business I love, and I inspire others to create and build businesses they love too. Are you interested in being more authentic in your business? And do you want to step more into enjoying your work? Do you need help with setting better business boundaries? Do you like to nerd out about something? Or are you interested in growing beyond your current business and diversifying your income streams? Well, check out my podcast and blog for business building tips and strategies on substack.com at Dr. Brianna Willie.
Now that we've talked for a while. Who the hell is this guy?
Well, I am Dr. Brianna Willie, and this is my channel, Business for Nerds. Enough about me. I'm interviewing entrepreneurs so we can mutually support each other in business. And here I have today Joseph Robertson, a multifaceted professional known for his expertise in email copywriting, his role at the Guardian Academy, and his passion for the coffee culture through Extracted Magazine. You're also an email copywriter for coaches and consultants, and you write Growing Trees. I know there's so many other things you're doing as well. I especially love Growing Trees. I just wanted to say that, as you just saw. The others are, of course, very interesting and helpful, but I love the creativity in Growing Trees. So anyway, there is Joseph Robertson. What did I miss anything in your intro?
No. I think that's good. You had sent me that beforehand, and I was thinking about telling you to take the coffee stuff out of there,
Okay.
and even the email copywriting stuff out there.
Okay.
I still
I can
like
delete
so I.
it.
No, don't no. Let's roll with it. That's
Okay.
my style. Because I published a magazine about coffee for 8 years.
I love
a lot of the
coffee.
content still exists in places, and Nick keeps trying to get me to do something more with it.
Yeah.
That the loop is open until the pieces are right. But I do still do work as an email copywriter in certain contexts, but I think what you got is probably from my LinkedIn, or maybe it was some old copy on my website. I don't know.
Yeah, I looked at all of that.
Yeah. I
Yep,
don't,
yep.
because when I started off doing that work specifically, that was at least 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
It was more in like a freelance type role, and now I am very picky about my clients because I can be.
Sure.
So
I like that. Yeah, we
anyway,
gotta be.
that's a little bit vague, but there you go.
So could you tell us what you're doing right now or what you're working on or?
Yeah, so a lot of the work that I focus on right now is with the Guardian Academy. So I'm the CMO of the Guardian Academy and Man Bites Dog publication, which is owned by the Guardian Academy. Man Bites Dog is just like the marketing and business offshoot. So the Guardian Academy itself, both on Substack, but the Guardian Academy publication itself is very principle and philosophy focused, like how to live a good life and get what you want. We have our corner man, Dr. Jeff Spencer, who really guides us from a champion's mind perspective. I'm kind of throwing some terms in here, but if you go to the Guardian Academy, listeners, if you go to the Guardian Academy, you can search for those and dig around and see what you find. That's really the best way to get into it. And then, yeah, as I said, Man Bites Dog is the practical application of those principles and philosophies in marketing and business.
Oh, I didn't actually know the difference. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm sure it says somewhere, but I missed it.
Well, we do things quite a bit differently than most people do because we work, and this is an R3 thing. We work from the end towards the beginning. So we start with the people that we know that we want in those communities. And then we backwards engineer to create the most likely path that will attract the right people in, like, all the way up to that point. That's a very short summary.
Okay.
But it looks that the building of it looks messy if you're thinking from the front.
Oh, I like starting actually at the back, the bottom of like a list, or because my brain works a little better that way. Because in school, I was like, oh, you got to start here. You got to create an outline. And I was like, no, I'm going to start in the middle because that's where I want to be. So neat. I think that's great. You start kind of backwards. And I'm jumping around a little bit. So going from that to also asking about what do you nerd out about? So I noticed in your email you talked about, well, at the end you had the little robot going beep boop.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, you're totally a nerd. That's awesome. You got to be on my show. And that reminded me of, I have little robots in all of my now logos and everything.
Yeah.
I don't even know fully why. I guess I see myself as one of the robots. I kind of explained that in my last video. Anyway, what do you nerd out about?
All right. Well, so what comes to mind right now is my nerdiest of nerdly things, Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh.
And various video games, depending upon what my kids are into. Like No Man's Sky. I don't know if you've played No Man's Sky at all.
No.
That's an interesting sort of exploration type, space exploration type game. But yeah.
Sounds interesting. Yeah. I don't really, well, Dungeons and Dragons I've never played, but of course I've seen Stranger Things, which I know is kind of based on that. So I know a little bit. I play like I don't know, Witcher, Fallout, stuff like that. Cool. I don't know if you've ever heard of Thief. That's an old school game.
I heard of it, but never played it.
Yeah, it's super fun. Oh my goodness. And it has like a cult following, I'd say. Anyway, I think
I always tended to drift towards the RPGs with computer games. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do you want to tell me a little bit about one of those or any of them?
Well, the D&D one is interesting because I discovered this last year when I really started focusing on writing with the Guardian Academy and some of my other personal writing. I'm gonna have to backtrack for context. I was getting more and more work writing a whole lot of me writing, and I was transitioning off a lot of client projects where I had gone heavily into AI.
Mm.
And just as a tremendously brief on AI, there's no way to explain this in such short words, but I use AI kind of like I use the rearview mirror. So if I have a process that is known and repeatable that I could like give someone else to do, so in like for like a copywriting project, for example, where the words don't need to come from in here or in here, then it makes sense to leverage the production speed of the AI.
Mm-hmm.
Very short explanation. But when I started
Yeah.
working with Guardian Academy, it's entirely my perspective. Like I write all those words, nothing really comes from AI. It's all entirely me. And I had to figure out how to write a heck of a lot more and more consistently. Well, I didn't really feel a pressure to do it. This just kind of like naturally transpired. But I was also going through it, and I write about this a little bit, I think, in some earlier Growing Trees articles about going through different processes of figuring out how to write. I think there's one that's titled something like How I Never Run Out of Ideas.
I need to look at that one.
And getting to the point, what I discovered, because around the time that I started writing for the Guardian Academy, and I was writing a lot more for my own stuff and other projects that required my actual writing, I was also getting super into Dungeons and Dragons with my kids, and I was building a campaign, which I actually used AI heavily for, in like a real like kind of back and forth. Like I used it to start off and give me some seed ideas, and then those ideas would give me ideas to write about, and I would write a bunch, and then I would go back to it, and it really helped me like structure them in a way that fit into the game. But what I found is that I would sit down in my day to write, and a lot of days what would be on my mind would be like, oh man, I had this great idea for this character. Crap, but I got to write this other thing. And what I started doing is I'd be like, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to write about, like, it's my work day. I'm going to write the history of this character in this fictional game that I made up. And I would write that and I'll just start writing that. And I always found that something would happen and I would immediately jump into something else that I had been wanting to work on, like work day wise. So the writing of the D&D actually changed my perspective on how I write and approach the work that I'm doing.
Ooh.
In that I give myself permission to, this is the basic thing. Every day I sit down, I give myself permission to write whatever I need to get out of here.
I love that.
That's a character in a story. That has nothing to do with my business.
Yes. And that's often something I ask about with business owners and writers. I think it's all business. How, finding a work-life balance or integration where we enjoy our work, we talked about the parts within, that those inner parts of the person are happy in their work. And it sounds like you found a way to connect all of those different aspects, the fun with D&D, with also the writing, which of course is fun too in its own way, but like they're not separate, and one will help you inspire you in the other, and you're not putting one here and one there. It's like all connected.
Yeah. I think that's pretty accurate. I found that because I mentioned I published a magazine about coffee for 8 years. I did most of the writing for that, and I did not like writing. I did not really like writing until like a couple of years ago, really, like around this time when I figured this stuff out. Because I
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes my experience was sitting down at a blank page and like, I got to write this, I got to write this, I got to write this, and just fighting with myself about it.
It wasn't
And
fun.
no, well,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, not only was it not fun, but I couldn't access what I needed to for the writing that mattered because the other stuff was, for lack of a better word, in the way. Like I just
Mm.
imagine it kind of like a flow of water to a dam, and like whatever is at the mouth of the dam, I have to let through for the other stuff to come. And if that happens to be, a D&D storyline, then I got to do it to serve what matters anyway.
Yes. Yes.
So and it's not as linear as that, but that's kind of a visual that's made sense to me as I've gone into it.
Go with the
There's kind of
inspiration.
Yeah. Well, and there's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, it's kind of like a muse sort of perspective, like how a lot of people talk about the muse, like the muse, you just got to take what the muse gives to you. And that to me was always like an external thing. Like whenever anyone else talked about it, I'm like, what is this force coming at me? And I'm like, yeah, maybe that's just the internal. I like that there's an element of presence I really need to find to write well, because I need to be able to listen to myself.
Mm-hmm.
But the more
I
I've
hear
like
that.
leaned into that, the easier it's become. So whereas not even 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, writing every day was like I would build all these rituals around it and like sit down and focus and yada yada. Um, Now I'll be like sitting watching The Nightmare Before Christmas with my 2-year-old who's obsessed about the Pumpkin King.
Oh,
And I'll have this thing starting to pile out of my head and I'll whip out my phone and I'll just shoot. Like I don't even need to. I mean, I was gonna say I don't even need to try. I don't want to like brag about that or anything. Some
you're
days are
not.
are still are
Yeah.
like I'm not perfect. Some days are still challenging, but
Yeah.
my challenging days are like I write a few hundred to 1,000 words,
Mm-hmm.
which used to be like a good day, you know.
Mm-hmm. Huh.
So in retrospect, are
It's
you familiar with Raise
increased.
the Floor?
I
Concept of Raise the Floor?
I'm still having trouble with that one. I've heard it like 100 times. Again, I don't know. Could you explain it
Yeah,
again?
for sure. So it's one of my favorite ideas from the Guardian Academy. So most people, when they're trying to improve upon something, end up trying to improve upon the best thing that they've done. So for context, oftentimes I found this easiest to talk about from like as a freelancer, I can make a certain amount of money a month. And let's say that I want to make $10,000 a month. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's say that my best month is like 8,000. Most people will approach their stuff being like, I got to hit 10, I got to hit 10, I got to hit 10. And you'll like constantly try to beat your best. And part of the reason people do this is because they think life is linear. Like our natural inclination towards thinking about this stuff is that line go up, right? So if you hit 10, you're just going to keep having 10 or more. But it's this. It's always an oscillation. It's always like you go up, you come down, you go up, you come, like there's no, it's not like even, but there's variation, right?
Right.
And the biggest challenges come because of the difference in that variation. And what
Okay.
matters is your average. So from a financial perspective, if you want to make 10,000 a month and your best is 8 and your worst is 1, and your average is that 3.5? I can't math in my head that way. And your average is like 3.5,
Mm-hmm.
then you're trying and you really want 10. You're like, oh, my average is 3.5, but I'm like trying to go for 10. I mean, you can already look at that and be like, if you just hit 3.5 consistently, or even 4, you'd be doing better, right? But what you can actually do is look at your worst month at 1 and just do better than that. Because there are two ways to increase the average. Either you do better than your best, or you increase your worst.
Okay.
And if you think about it logically, there is no evidence to demonstrate that you can do better than your best. Because your best is your best. It's like the best you've ever done.
Yeah.
You can't look back and be like, oh, I've only ever done 8. I could do 10. Like, can you? Because you never have.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
But you can do better than 1 because you've done 8.
Right. There's evidence.
So stop trying to push yourself higher and instead beat the thing that you can beat. And the second thing is that if you do focus on increasing the high, all it does is increase the variance.
Oh.
Which makes it more volatile and much more emotionally stressful. Like whether it's money or anything else. Like you will increase your average, but you'll increase the variance, which will wreck you.
Yeah.
So increasing the average by raising the lower amount, which you can do, lowers the variance and lowers your stress and makes it much easier to keep going. And what usually happens if you focus on raising the floor over time is that eventually it becomes better than your ceiling.
I see. So you're kind of applying that with your writing.
In retrospect, that's kind of what's happened. I didn't necessarily plan it out that way, other than I was seeking ways to more consistently write. But I didn't map out how many words have I written today.
Right.
And then be like, oh, let me write more than 600. Let me write more than 700. I mean, I could have done that, and maybe that would have applied.
Well, that takes the magic out of it.
I kind of more intuitively discovered it. But that has been the impact, is that because I have more consistently written every day, my worst days are now at least as good as my previous best days.
Cool. So you are.
It takes time.
You're naturally applying it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I did want to ask a little bit, because you have talked a bit about AI and the struggle with, using it, but also not cutting out the creativity within and your writing or your work. How are you finding a balance, would you say, with AI?
Yeah. So I have a few rules and frameworks and perspectives that I apply. Hold on. Is that audible? Probably not. Okay. My toddler's knocking on the door going, daddy, daddy, daddy.
Oh, how sweet. I heard a little tiny little.
Yeah, that was him. It's all good. I created this is a whole sidebar. We don't need to go down. I created a course on integrating AI as an email copywriter in partnership with Lucas Rashevsky. Well, we launched it in partnership. I did all of the creation, but because I had been using it consistently with my clients to great effect. I'd reduced my production time on a lot of key projects down 90%.
Nice.
Without sacrificing any results or anything like that. So I had kind of distilled the principles that I had applied to that, and some of them which are relevant to this here. I don't let the AI think for me. And I almost always only use AI for production when it's a proven process. And one that does not require, or one where I don't care if it's my perspective. So oftentimes in copywriting is often like kind of a scientific puzzle. We do a lot of creative work to figure out what is the idea that we're going to kind of go after, and to do the research to understand the people and figure out the perspectives and all that kind of thing. But then a fair amount of the writing is just, we know who we're talking to and what we need to say. It's just putting together the words in a way that connects the dots properly for the reader. And that's not necessarily a creative endeavor.
Right. Very true.
So that's one of the categories. The other category, which I use tentatively, because again, I don't let the AI do my thinking for me, but sometimes I have found it useful as a mirror. And this, especially before I really figured out a lot of my writing process, whenever I'd get stuck and I wasn't sure how to write, I would just talk to the AI. Just be like, here's what I'm trying to do. And then it would like shoot some stuff back for me. And it almost like didn't matter what it said. What mattered was going through the process of having kind of an external conversation that came back to me in not my head, where I could reflect on something else's whatever processing of my words.
Okay.
But I don't use that as much anymore, I'm finding.
Yeah.
Because I find I am not really getting stuck all that much. As long as I can give myself the presence in the breathing room to write,
right.
I tend to figure things out. But yeah, so if it's
That's
if it's a known process, I'll use it to execute and compress my time on things I don't need to spend my time doing. But otherwise, I find too much value. Like, I don't care how long the time is if I'm needing to do the writing process myself. If that makes sense.
You don't care how much the time is.
I
So
don't
like
care
how long it takes.
Yeah, I don't care how long it takes. Like, I don't care about compressing my time in like writing Guardian Academy articles. Because what matters is that I'm thinking through and providing my unique personal perspective on those ideas.
The quality, not the quantity. It's the, doesn't have to be done in a certain amount of time. Neat.
I mean, if it took me a lot less time, like I like the weeks where I write faster.
Sure.
But it would make no sense for me to use AI, because that's not the point of that writing. Same with growing trees. I'll never use AI for one of those, because the point is I'm doing the writing.
Yeah. You're sharing your thoughts, not AI's thoughts. It might help as a tool, but you're sharing your knowledge.
I'll use it for the thumbnails, because I'm not sitting here making visual art.
Sure.
All respect to visual artists. But for something like this, I'll just fire that out.
Neat.
With the AI. So
I like it. Thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else you wanted to share with us about your work or your articles or anything?
I feel like I need to have a speech now.
You can.
I feel like that's an open-ended question. I can't wrap my head around it.
I have others. I had AI help me come up with some. I feel like you covered a lot of it.
Let's see what the AI wants to know about me.
I did rely on AI for some things. Let's see. What did AI say? What are some key moments that shaped your professional journey?
Oh, wow.
I guess that's open, but it put in the Guardian Academy, the magazine, growing trees.
Okay, I can run with that. Actually, I can run with that. So this will be a little bit of a Guardian Academy progression. It's always challenging to explain how I've gotten where I've come, because it's been like a weird organic shifting path that I've walked. But the Guardian Academy was initially born out of a crypto project that turned into this like principle and philosophy based thing, because so Nick Peterson, who started it, he was teaching these principle foundations to help people navigate the volatile and Wild West crypto space, which in many ways mirrored how life goes. And we found a ridiculous amount of value in the principles, more so than even whatever money could be made from the crypto. So that kind of spun off into this sort of education type platform. And initially, Nick was doing all the writing
Mm-hmm.
with maybe another person here or there. But I had found the opportunity to contribute to the community by writing. So early on, I had written, I think the first thing I ever wrote, The Real Cost of Dopamine. So, and did a little home experiment where we shut off all screens for 2 weeks.
Whoa.
Like outside of
Interesting.
the need for doing work, because obviously I was on a screen to write. But outside of that, it's like no TV, no phones, no video games, nothing.
Wow.
Just to kind of see what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of wrote about that experience in my thoughts, because one of the things that the major points of one of the major problems that we were trying to address at the time was people going to crypto, and it's a very volatile space, and people
Is
are usually
it?
going in out of greed. They're like, oh, I'm going to make a crap load of money, and then they're like checking the stats, pushing buttons, checking the stats, pushing the buttons, checking the stats, and we're like, you're not like investing, you're like just getting high on dopamine, and it's making you crash and burn. And so we had a whole thing about that.
Right.
But so I had that article published. It was useful. It hit well. Then I had another one publish a few months later that was all about slowing down. And then I think it was maybe almost a year later, Nick moved the publication to Substack, and he came to me and he was like, hey, man, do you want to write? I need a writer. I like your writing. And I was like, yes, please. Thank you. But
And done.
the reason I'm telling this is because the way that Nick has brought me in and set me up is like one of the first things he told me was, I like your writing, follow your instinct and just write what you feel like you need to write. And like total open door. There's this structure we talk about. Well, actually, it comes from a few different people. In the process of figuring out your greatest gifts, like we might talk about it as your like full potential, or Dr. Jeff talks about it now as exponential potential. So there's a bit of an evolution on how this is discussed. But I'm gonna go back to a particular framework from Randy Massengale, and the framework is frequency, intensity, and purpose. So a lot of people will like try to just go find their purpose because they feel a draw to like, oh, I need to do this. I need to find my purpose, and then they'll go and they'll like try to seek that out. But purpose or full potential is an emergent property from doing certain things. And the only thing you can really do yourself is take action. And so this is frequency, or Dr. Jeff would talk about it as known potential. So it's something you can do yourself. And for me, that is just writing. So I was already writing a crap load before I came to Nick. The next step is intensity. Intensity emerges from the process of writing. And intensity is, or the process of doing, in my case, writing. Intensity is your unique stamp that is on a thing. So if you've ever read some writing and you're like, I bet that person wrote it, that's the intensity.
Oh.
Or like watched a movie and you're like, I bet this director made that. That's the intensity.
Oh, I never saw it that way. Huh.
And the like companion potential piece is unknown potential. So intensity starts to come out from applying known potential, like applying frequency in your known potential over and over again. Unknown potential comes out from other people. Exposure and proximity to the right people who can bring it out in you by giving you opportunities in the right space to have your intensity be revealed. So that takes the right people right people not just allowing you to be in a certain way, but also like knowing how to pull that out. And so Nick has been one of those people for me, being in that space, like allowing me to progress on that process. Now, as far as purpose and full potential, those emerge from the combination of the previous. Like applying what you do, having your intensity come out, having your unknown potential come out, like full potential and or purpose, are emergent from those two things combining. I can't tell you that I'm there, but I don't know that I would be close if I hadn't had those opportunities. So I think that brings me full circle on your question on the AI's question of what.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about what shaped your career, your professional journey.
Moments that shaped my professional journey. So yes.
And it did.
Nick coming to me and being like, "Hey, you want to write?"
Yeah. And it's helped you grow. And he's
for sure. Yeah.
But it's also because he's helped pull out the different aspects of you.
Yes, the way that he brought me in and has like, and I mean, part of the reason he can do that is because he sees that I like clearly communicate in a valuable way the principles that he initially laid out. So like he can trust me with all of this stuff to do the work well. But he also knows that if he just lets me go, that's when the good stuff comes out. It's back to uncertainty. It's like we both step into uncertainty with just write whatever you feel like needs to be written. And in that uncertainty, like I couldn't just he couldn't instruct me to write the way that I've written. I couldn't instruct myself to write the way that I've written. It had to happen.
Right. With the connection between the two of you talking, you learning his stuff, him talking to you, drawing out the potential.
Yeah. And then just going through the process over and over again. It just happens. Like it usually, and that's usually the way that my articles are actually. Like even these short ones that are like fun and weird, I have no idea what's going to happen when I start writing. I usually have a concept of a seed that gets me excited to explore, and then I just kind of chase that until the right thing shows up.
That's a fun way to write, and that's how I've been writing. And again, I'm a newbie, but that continues to draw me forward. The unknown, like I don't have a beginning and an end. The end is what will reveal itself. I just wrote my first short story.
Oh, awesome.
And yeah, it was so exciting. But I read online, I was trying to learn how do you write a short story, because I've been trained with academic writing, not fiction. So, but I find that, the unknowns of it, like my character had to kind of grow as I learned who the character was, and they faced obstacles, and the obstacles like came to my mind after I started writing. So that's how I'm writing lately.
I think that's really cool.
It's fun, and it keeps me actually like, I don't even know what's going to happen yet. So like with video, if I ever created a video game, I don't think I'd figure out the end. I would kind of figure it out as I built it. I doubt I would ever do that because I don't want to create a video game, but that's how I would do it.
Yeah.
Anyway, keep writing fun, keep it interesting. And if we set up the end of it, it takes away the magic, I think.
Yeah, there's oh man, I think I have this here. Hang on. This is from Dr. Jeff. He said this at Grey Wolf Summit, which is the big yearly Guardian Academy event. So it's here it is. Don't try to fill the story in advance. So, and a lot of people will approach, especially when it's like trying to figure out what you want in life and go towards a goal. A lot of people will decide in advance how that's going to come about, like what they're going to do and how it's going to be. But, and this is another Dr. Jeff, we have to do what's in front of us as it's revealed to us. Like that's actually all we only ever can do in life. And so when it comes to like goal setting and like intentionally getting what you want in life, there's a bit of there, I think there's a lot of letting go. To me, a goal is useful because you can see where you want to go, and you can backtrack from there to where you are now and figure out the next best step that you can take to get towards that. But once you figure out what the next step is, let go of everything that you think is that's in front of you. Like, let go of the goal, let go of what you think it could be, take the step, and then see what happens. Because if you predetermine the story and the outcome, you will blind yourself to what could it really be that's more special and impactful and useful to yourself. So
I wonder if because I have been listening to you all. I've been in some arena meetings. I'm working with Scott, and I wonder if I know a lot of this does get absorbed, but I kind of I learn things and I try things. And I wonder if
That's the
just
way to do it.
naturally I absorbed and just like that's how I wrote my book.
Yeah.
Just what you described. Like
Yeah.
I had a thought of how it would be. It wasn't a book, it was a short story. Anyway, I had a thought of what it was going to look like. I mapped it out and I'm like, I'm not doing that. So I just started with the concept and just it revealed itself.
Yeah.
And it grew. But anyway.
I think
Interesting.
that's a great way to write a story. I think that's really the only way to live life, because most of it we can't control or decide. So we have to just deal with what's in front of us. That's all we can ever do.
Yeah. Like don't hold on too tightly to a goal. Yes, have a goal, but once you've found a step, you might find yourself going a different way, you know?
Well, yeah, the step you take might reveal new information that changes your goal. Like,
Mhm.
if you aren't receptive to that, you can miss out on what maybe really actually matters to you.
Yes.
So there are a lot of other pieces that can be pulled in from there, but
Yeah. Yeah. We could go down happy rabbit holes with that stuff,
yes,
but
indeed.
okay. Well, anything else you wanted to share with us?
Not that aren't more rabbit holes.
I hear it. I think this
Yeah.
has been a fabulous, interesting conversation, and I'm learning a lot. Let's see. How do people reach out to you? How
So
do they
actually,
follow
you
you?
can go to josephrobertson.co,
Mhm.
and you'll actually find links to the Gardening Academy and Man Bites Dog and Growing Trees on there. So that's probably the easiest way to just go find me or those. I mean, most of the writing on those other publications is me right now, but there's more stuff happening with those publications. It's not just me. I'm just the writer. So, but yeah, if
Yeah,
any of the principles have resonated with you, dear listener or watcher, yeah, go check out the Guardian Academy.
definitely. And we'll maybe hear about this mysterious whatever with the growing trees at some point.
Oh yeah, I'll no doubt. I'll no doubt right there. I've been the days have been so packed. It's and there's been a little bit of like open. I've left a loop open, and
Yeah,
I
you said
felt
you're
like,
working on something.
yeah, well, I felt like I can't close that just yet for whatever reason.
Does that mean
Um,
you're like noodling on it? You're still deciding or?
yeah, well, like so. Okay, short rabbit hole. Um,
If you want.
I do.
Okay.
Open loops are fascinating, and people can argue about whatever an open loop actually means. But the idea is that a lot of times we hear a new concept and we immediately want to make sense of it. We're like, oh, what does that mean? And let me go research and let me like fit this into my life. And this is really interesting. And I have to know. I just have to know, because we're kind of built that way. Again, that's an inclination towards certainty and away from uncertainty, because not knowing is uncertain.
Right. Which
But
is
it's in the
scary to some of us.
uncertainty that
Sorry.
the stuff emerges. So when I have a new idea or something like that has occurred from doing this exercise with the daily email, and that like there's a reason I stopped doing it, but I can't fully write and explain in a way that, like, I just can't write it yet. So rather than trying to force that, I'm just letting it sit. That's it. I'm
Oh,
not even thinking about it.
yes. It's in the back of your brain.
Yeah, or somewhere.
Hmm.
It could be out there. Could be I don't know.
Or maybe one of the little guys you were talking about
Yeah,
is like kind of
they could have
noodling.
taken it and run away. Maybe
I love that.
maybe when I write about it, they're gonna run back with it, or I'm gonna like catch them with a net or something. I don't know. I better stop talking about it. It's gonna
I
make me
love
think about
those.
it and try to write it. It's not time yet.
Nope,
Time
not
yet.
time.
It's like,
Not
but
time.
okay, so to bring it full circle, growing trees. So the reason I call it growing trees is this little story. And if you go to the growing trees and read the Embracing Growing Trees, you'll see this story here. It's some version of there are two neighbors, and they both want to like grow trees. But one of the neighbors is like, I'm gonna grow the tallest tree in the neighborhood. I'm gonna have the tallest tree. And the other neighbor's like, cool man, I'm also gonna grow some trees. And so they go about growing trees. And they do this for like 10 years. And after 10 years, different variations of this, but after 10 years, the one guy who's trying to grow the tallest tree finally has the tallest tree. He's just like barely taller than anyone else. And he's like, yeah, I have the tallest tree. And the other guy's like, what? Oh, cool, man. I got trees too. And the thing is, the guy who was like trying to have the tallest tree spent 10 years not having what he wanted, and like constantly pushing and stressing, and like probably not actually even getting the tallest tree, because that is usually not how it goes. Whereas the other guy didn't care about having the tallest tree. He cared about getting better at growing trees. So he spent his time loving the process of getting better at it and not caring about the outcome. And there are a lot of layered lessons in there. One of them being that the guy who wanted the tallest tree, he was failing his entire life for 10 years because he had defined it based off of an outcome that he honestly didn't really have that much control over. Whereas the other guy was happy from day one because he was immediately just having what he wanted, which was enjoying the cultivation. So it's all recognizing that all we can do is really deal with the stuff that's in front of us, and finding the joy in the cultivation of that, and the growth of that is what it's all about. So there you go. Full circle. Done.
Yep. He held too tightly to that goal of having to have the biggest, tallest tree. The other guy totally enjoyed it much more and didn't attach too tightly to that goal. So cool. I think I got that. Yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah, that is
or
full
noodle
circle.
on it. Leave it open.
Yes. Oh, I could. Yeah. I need to work on that because I know my brain just goes to trying to understand it fully. And maybe that's what happened with my story. I didn't fully understand it. Anyway, I'm going to be totally noodling on all these things. Anyway, I know you probably have to get back to your afternoon. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for
And
having me. It's been a pleasure.
yeah, it's been so fun. And thank you, listeners, for listening. So goodbye.
All right. Awkward ending. Toodaloo.
I'm so awkward.